Welcome back to our very first conversational podcast. We are the Christian Women's Health Collective, and now you've met us in our stories that we launched last month, and we are here to bring you into the start of back to school and nutrition for both children and you. Here we go. Hi, ladies.
Hey, y'all.
Hey there.
Well, we're all old.
I can't believe the summer's
not
gone.
in school anymore, but do what?
I said I can't believe the summer's already gone. So,
Oh, I know.
so to speak. Yeah, it went fast. So, but yeah, we are old and we don't have children in school.
But if we could change something that we had, I just know for my kid, I didn't know anything about nutrition when my kid was little, and I had my kid while I was still a kid. I was 18 when I got pregnant, 19 when I had her. And so my kid had fruit by the foot and Lunchables and all that really, really bad stuff. I ate cereal for dinner, y'all.
Me too, and so did my kids.
Poor.
Me too. Ramen noodles.
Yep. When you learn better, you do better.
That's
and
right.
I mean, that's about all it is. It's about a journey. It's about, taking baby steps, because that's what it is. And
Yeah.
the more we can bring our children into that, it's just going to ripple out and go into their life and their health going forward.
Yeah, we've always had a lot of conversations around food at our house because my daughter was diagnosed with food allergies when she was so little. So our food health journey started when she was born, basically. And so we've been on that nutrition path for a long time. And but I certainly made mistakes when they were younger that I would change now, obviously. But yeah, we've done and tried a lot of things with the kids to get them to eat healthy over the years. So
Yeah.
What are some things you would have done different? What are some things that come to mind?
I would not have worried about their weight so much when they were little, because they were always on the growth charts, like low for height, low for weight. But I am only 5 foot tall. My husband's only 5'6", and everyone in our families is small. And so our kids were really small, but the doctor was always so worried, like, feed them more, feed them more, feed them more. And looking back, I'm like, I wouldn't have worried about that so much. They ate when they were hungry and they didn't when they weren't, and it was fine. I think I was, well, a new mom, you're just obsessed about everything, right? Especially when they're babies, like, how many ounces did they drink? How many dirty diapers did they have today? Like, and so you get kind of in that focus of that. And so, I think I wouldn't have stressed quite so much about how much they were actually eating. And I definitely, with my daughter's food allergies, now knowing some of the dairy that people replace milk with and stuff, like the different types of milks out there, like I definitely would have, there are some that I definitely would have avoided. Now looking back, I probably would not be giving them soy milk instead of cow's milk and stuff. And so yeah, we've changed a lot over the years and tried a lot of different things. And so
The soy was pushed a lot.
mhm.
I know it was pushed a lot. My older daughter, she had an issue. I don't remember why, but it was, when we did move to formula, because I breastfed her until she was 7 months old. And, and then they started changing her formula and they pushed us into soy. And I'm like, I didn't know any better then, but I sure wouldn't do that now.
Oh, no.
Same.
I wouldn't do that now.
Yep, same. Because my daughter actually had ended up developing a soy allergy later on also, in addition to the dairy. So
yeah.
My daughter didn't have food
and
allergies.
she's
I'm sorry, Sherry.
yeah. No, I was just going to say she is lactose intolerant, so that's probably why we got moved over. We didn't know at that point in time. She wasn't like, we weren't told at that point in time, but that might have been why we ended up in the soy. But you're right, there's a lot of better choices out there.
Yeah.
including, I think, goat's milk, because goat's milk is more like human milk.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yep.
I didn't even know. I think I was just the mom that didn't really know there were options. I listened to my mother-in-law and the pediatrician. That was it. I had a few magazines here and there that I could pick up, but it seemed that they all said the same thing. So you read one, you read them all. And so, I mean, I was just that mom that just used what I had. So my poor kids, they grew up with a lot of not so good, and they've kept all these habits. A few of them I'm trying to change over now, but they're like, Mom, you're healthy. That's gross. So it's been kind of a challenge to incorporate them, but it's happening slowly but surely. Uh,
Yeah, growing up in the South, my daughter ate pretty much anything that was put in front of her. She didn't, and I was like that as a kid too. There was nothing I wouldn't eat. I ate Brussels sprouts, and I ate the gross Brussels sprouts that were frozen in butter sauce. And the one thing that I didn't like growing up was asparagus. And that was because my mom she would buy them in the can, and they were really mushy and gross. And so I never forced my kid to eat asparagus, although she loves them now, but she would eat all the vegetables, the whole spectrum of vegetables. And as she got older, she started to not like some of them, like green beans or whatever. But she also, ate tons of fried foods and, a lot of sugar, because being a kid, having a kid, I had a $38 a week budget, and I didn't know any different. I would spend, and this was 27 years ago, so groceries weren't near what they are now, and you could actually live on $38 a week, but it was still trash food, like store brand carbohydrate crackers, and just the cheapest stuff I could get my hands on. And if I knew now that if I just spent that little bit of money making a spaghetti sauce, or making, a casserole of some sort that had, the colors, and yeah, I know I'm carnivore now, but back then I wasn't, that had the, the colorful vegetables and stuff in it, instead of focusing so much on carbs, I probably would see her be a little healthier today. But her choices in foods today are atrocious. And it's much like you, Julie, as much as I have changed in nutrition, and I started to get healthy when she was 11, she still chooses. It's almost like she rebels against me now for making her be healthy for those adolescent teenage years in her life.
yeah.
So it's a lot of fast food, and a lot of just really crappy beverages, and it's
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think I do not realize as a mom, like I heard so long children are resilient or whatever. I never realized they are picking up these habits that they will forever have for life. Like I did not register to me. Food was one of the things that I needed to pay attention to in that, behavior, but not food,
Yeah.
but
And then the behaviors tied to the food,
exactly.
which is what I found and dealt with a lot, because again, my daughter was 11 years old also when we started going down that path of making the changes. And yeah, and yesterday I got a picture from Jordan that with the meal that was made last night, which was ratatouille, and it was beautiful.
Wow.
And I mean, all of the cutting up and whatnot, she's so talented in going into the refrigerator, and she didn't get this from me, pulling out whatever and creating a meal out of it. And I'm just like, wish I had that talent. But what I was going to say too is that it does matter. It does matter with what your kid is eating, especially before you send them to school. So, as far as, and I'm going to go back to Jordan with ADHD, but you have to take a look at what are they eating?
Yeah.
Because if it is full of sugar, which, what are we told to give them at breakfast? Waffles and toast and, all of these cinnamon rolls, whatever it is, and whatever we can get in their bodies before they head to school, because that's much better, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. If you sat there and ate a bunch of sugar before you went to school, would you be able to sit in your seat?
Yeah.
Just as a normal person without ADHD, without ADD issues, it just makes it real hard to concentrate and to be able to sit in your seat, right? And do what it is that the teacher wants you to do and not be buzzing all over the room. So yeah, so just thinking about what you're eating as well.
Yeah.
What are you eating for breakfast and or
Yep.
lunch?
Yeah.
Because it'll also turn around, and once that sugar crash happens, because it will, then you're tired. So now they're tired and they can't concentrate. So first they're
Tired
hyped up
and
they
hungry and can't
concentrate,
concentrate.
then they're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
And
But then they'll
begging
get a
for
hit
another
again at
chocolate
lunch.
Pop-Tart.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that I
Mine
think
has
bugs me the
Pop-Tarts.
most is the packaging, because oatmeal. My daughter loved the dinosaur egg oatmeal. There's so much sugar in that oatmeal. But you think as a young parent or as a new parent, whether you're young or not, you look at the packaging and you think you're giving your kids something really nutritious. And that's what just ticks me off, is there's just no good education. And yesterday I posted a YouTube video on my personal channel about, how we've evolved in nutrition through the years, looking back to World War II, pre-World War II, before packaged foods became a shelf item in the grocery store, to where we're at right now, and the activity of kids today, right? I mean, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even in the early part of the 80s, kids were active. They went outside. But as TVs became a more common amenity in our houses, and as video games became a popular thing to have, kids became more lethargic. They became much more sedentary, and the standard American diet got put into play in the 70s, and this fat-free ideal, and these seed and vegetable oils, and don't eat good fats, and it's just been this huge trickle effect, and kids are just so unhealthy today compared to 50 years ago. And the problem I see, though, is the parents aren't educated either, because they believe in the standard American diet.
That's right. Yeah. But I mean, you think about it too. You just think about, listen to you talking, like, what was my routine for my kids? And it was, okay, we're going to go play ball. We don't get in until 6:37. Well, now we're eating, or we've eaten a ballpark hot dog, and then we come in and it's, oh, I'm hungry again. We'll go grab a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah.
So it's just like carb after sugar after process on top of it. My poor children, they really didn't even know what healthy was, because when I did cook healthy, it was so unhealthy. But in my mind, y'all, it really was, because it was potatoes, meat, vegetables, loaded with some bacon fat. And it was so good, but it was really bad. It's really bad. You don't think about it.
Yeah.
And I think what really disturbs me, which is why it's great with like what Bree does, is because of 1 in 3 are at risk for diabetes and hypertension. What's happening is we are putting our children at risk, because these are silent killing diseases that nobody knows about. And because they're children, they're saying, yeah, but you're just a child. And so they're not providing, the resources to stop it and prolong it. And it's just a never ending effect. And that's why I'm like, my poor kid, I've set him up unintentionally, of course,
Sure.
but it's what it is, what it is. It's facts.
Right. But the child diabetes, the type 2 diabetes in children, has elevated threefold what it was 20 years ago. And it's just getting worse.
Well, you think about all
Well,
the
and
breakfast food that's promoted, and even snacks between meals for kids, and lunchtime stuff. Like, everything is loaded with sugar. It's all processed, and it's just not healthy. Because here's the thing, those foods are convenient, and we're so about convenience, and making that easier on ourselves. And we are busy moms, busy parents, busy working moms. So it's hard to think, okay, I'm going to take this time out and cook all this food and chop up all these vegetables and fruits and all this stuff. So you really do have to make a priority to make time for it, and carve that out of your schedule, which is one of the things I like about fasting because it saves so much time on buying groceries, meal prep, like all that stuff. Like, well, I don't have time to do it, so I'm just not going to, and that's okay.
But your kids can't fast like that. That's not
They
healthy.
can't when they're young. They cannot. You have to feed them. And so we have done and tried a lot of things over the years to feed them, make meal prep quick and things like that, like pre-baking stuff on or cooking things on like a Sunday night for the rest of the week for the kids to have to put in their lunches for school, for them to grab for breakfast, and those kind of things. So those are really my favorite things to do, is that when I have free time on the weekends, I would meal prep stuff for the kids to eat during the week. And I even tried some of those, like the bento boxes, that are so popular and like Pinteresty and stuff,
Yes.
but those didn't go over that well. They don't have they have a very short amount of time to eat. And if it doesn't look as appealing as what is on someone else's plate, then they just will talk and not eat their food. And so I found that my kids were eating their food like on the way home from school on the bus when they finally had time to eat. And so that was one of the really hard things. But I realized when doing that, and like it was a lot of work cleaning those and reusing them like every day, trying to get their special vegetable things and fruit things and meat things, like all the things filled up. And so we finally just went to like plastic bags that they could just throw away, because they would lose all of the fancy things that I would send to them with school with all their food in it and stuff. They would lose it or get lost in the bus, or they'd forget they had it or whatever. So simple is best, and definitely doing the meal prep stuff. And here's the other thing, is that we don't have like a set breakfast menu. We're all about eating real foods all day. So like we'll have soup for breakfast, we'll have pizza for breakfast, we'll have steak for breakfast, we'll eat potatoes for breakfast, we'll have avocados. Like we're not and we put nut butter and peanut butter and healthy fats on everything. So to up the satiety that they feel, and the slow release of those calories over time, so that they feel for a little longer, they don't have those blood sugar spikes and stuff. So I don't know. Those are some of my hacks. So my kids will eat dinner food for breakfast as leftovers and stuff. We've just started that as a young age, like trying all kinds of food and experimenting with different things, and just sometimes I think it depends on the person though, because some people love to be creative with food. My husband and I love to do that. We involve our kids in that all the time. But some people are just like, I could eat the same thing every day and it wouldn't bother me. And so if you find something that works for you, or that your kid wants to eat every day, that's just fine.
Yeah.
I think the simpler that you can make it, the better.
And it's got to be what works for your family.
Exactly.
But I love that idea. So carbs are such a huge breakfast staple in a lot of homes, especially when kids are concerned. Here's a piece of toast, here's a Pop-Tart, here's whatever. If you could throw a tablespoon of nut butter and an egg at them, that would be way more filling and keep them more focused throughout the morning before they eat lunch than throwing them carbs. And so I love the idea of, some breakfast hacks that I think we could certainly incorporate in our membership for people, to just kind of get them some ideas on how they could fill their kids up without giving them a sugar crash.
Exactly. I think that in the courses that I've taught, that is the biggest problem. It's like, what do I eat for breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's the hardest thing for people. And interestingly enough, Jordan, she loved whatever for breakfast. So she would have, dinner for breakfast. We would call it dinner for breakfast. So it's like whatever was in there. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't matter, because she didn't care for traditional, breakfast foods, which was probably a good thing. I wasn't necessarily battling that. But yeah, I mean, the other thing, hacks you're talking about is, depending upon your child, and it doesn't really matter what age, really, is getting them involved in the shopping, going to the store, so, we're going to try a new vegetable this week, pick one out, or a new fruit, so they would find, I remember trying dragon fruit because it was so interesting and exotic looking, but then it's like, it becomes that, and getting them to help with the cooking, because a lot of times if they're involved with it and they can say, I helped make dinner, then they're also more inclined to eat it.
Mhm.
So, and getting them involved in those different ways is, I found to be very helpful. So
Well, I love that
she
idea
may or may
too.
not get help. Depending upon their age, it might be help or not.
I love the idea of them helping you shop, because my big thing, Tyler and I have talked about it because we would love to have more kids. Walking through a store and letting them pick up something because it looks really fun on the box. It has the dinosaur or the little monster on it or whatever, or Tony the Tiger. And then you get to explain to them why that's not an option. And they're so smart, and they're such little sponges at that point in their life that they'll soak that right in and hopefully take it with them into the later years.
Yeah. I think they do, as long as you stick with it and as long as
Yeah.
parents learn it, which is the important part of being part of the membership, is because, being a mom like me, when you look at the box and you see healthy, or you see different nut butters and you do find the one that says kids choice or pediatrician approved, you see that as being what you should choose. And I think the part that I've picked up so far is, there's a lot of different options. And so encouraging your child to take those options. I didn't do that. If they wanted to eat a certain thing, I was just happy they ate, and I was going to buy the cheapest because I wasn't going to be able. But what I didn't realize is that's empty calories. And teaching them how to truly eat will keep them healthier longer.
Mhm.
Plus, now that Taylor's an adult, his poor gut is so stuck on one thing that now he can't mix it up because anyway. So I think just learning that introduction, Sherry, yeah, the part about it is learning, because once you figure it out, then it becomes a little bit easier. So I think that's what we can provide here. If there's somebody listening in there, like, I hear what you're talking about, the things that we could do different, or that the things that could not be healthy, but how do we make them healthy? So I'm encouraged to share some things about how to make it healthy.
Absolutely. And when we move into our podcast that's coming up next week, I think it's important that we talk about understanding ingredients, because I love what you were saying, Julie, about how you look at the label, you look at the front of it and it says pediatric approved, #1, kids choice or whatever. But it's also really important that people understand what big food companies do to get that label put on their boxes.
Yes.
And it's dirty work.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sugar's an addiction. It's really sad as an adult is what I learned, that I have a sugar addiction and I hoard. And I think at the end of the day, the importance about this is what I taught my child and didn't realize it. So, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also really important as parents that we don't carry guilt. We learn when we learn, and we educate when we have the knowledge. So
it is.
But the earlier we can learn, which is kind of the big purpose of our membership, is to help people learn earlier in life than we did, the better we can teach our own.
Yeah.
And it's never too late is the other thing, is because God created our bodies so forgiving that they can heal, and it's not too late, and teaching our children that, as early as possible. I mean, for me and Bree, I think for you too, we were learning as we were teaching. It was it was real life. We were learning on the job for sure. So.
And a lot of things that we learn, we unlearn, because we learn things that aren't right. And then we have to unlearn those and learn things that are right, because we just trust in what we're told or what we read initially. And then, something new or more research comes out, and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. And a lot of times we backslide. And so there may be times where we get to a point and we are really encouraged by what we're learning and what we're doing, and we start seeing results. And then we get stuck. And what happens? We stop. It's like we hit a stump. And so we just totally quit. And even to the point to where maybe we saw muscles or we could see abs, like we see results. And I see that happen a lot. where you feel the change and then you just take a step back and you totally forget what you're doing. We don't want you to do that. We want you to go forward,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
encouraging too, to know that there's other things that push you further than you ever knew about,
Mhm.
Mhm. I think
Well, I
that's
encourage
another
anyone
good thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's another good thing about, being in the collective, in the group, is that there's 4 of us out there doing the research on what's happening now, because the information is changing so much that we can curate it for people, and help them go, you know what, this is what we're hearing now, in the echelons of the very holistic doctors. This is what they're finding, and be able to break that down into common language.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I encourage any of you listening to this podcast to stay tuned for the next podcast, because we're going to move into a little deeper dive into nutrition and some yo-yo dieting conversation. So join us next week for our next podcast. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.